Subscribe to Keep It Terrifying for creepy tales, horror, and nightmares you won't forget. Don't miss out. Hit that subscribe button and keep it terrifying.
Part 1, The Forgotten Trunk. Raph never cared much for fashion. He wore the same black hoodie and ripped jeans nearly every day. His wardrobe was minimal, what he had fit into a single drawer and half a closet. So, when his Aunt Martha passed away and left him her house, the last thing on his mind was clothing. The house was an old Victorian, creaking with the weight of its own history. Raph moved in not long after the funeral. It was remote, surrounded by gnarled trees and wrapped in a silence that felt too deliberate. The air always smelled faintly of mothballs and damp wood, like something had been buried there and left to fester. While exploring the attic one rainy afternoon, Raph found it, a large wooden trunk, dusty and wedged between old furniture and stacks of faded newspapers. It was the kind of trunk that seemed too heavy for one person to carry, with iron hinges and a large brass latch that had nearly rusted shut. Curiosity gnawed at him. After a few solid jerks, the latch gave way with a sharp snap and the lid creaked open, exhaling a sour breath that stung his nostrils. Inside were clothes, elegant, old-fashioned, and eerily pristine. Coats lined with satin, dresses stitched with lace, suits with high collars and gleaming buttons. Everything looked untouched by time. At the very top was a note, written in a trembling hand, "They don't like to be forgotten." Raph scoffed. Probably one of his aunt's eccentric jokes. She was always into strange stuff, seances, antique dolls, old family legends. He tossed the note aside and pulled out a dark coat. It was long, heavy, and strangely warm to the touch, almost like it still carried body heat. He tried it on. The fit was perfect. It slid over his shoulders like it had been tailored for him. For a moment, he caught his reflection in the dusty mirror propped against the attic wall. He didn't recognize himself. His eyes looked deeper. Older. The light in the attic dimmed. Thunder grumbled in the distance. He shivered and took the coat off. But when he tried to place it back in the trunk, he couldn't. His hands wouldn't let go. His fingers curled tighter around the fabric as if the coat was clinging back. Panic fluttered in his chest. He yanked harder, finally managing to toss it back into the trunk. Breathing heavily, he slammed the lid shut. The air in the attic felt colder now. Still, silent. Watching. That night, Raph dreamed of mannequins. Rows of them, faceless and draped in old clothing. Their limbs creaked as they turned toward him, moving without motion, closing in without a sound. At the center of them stood a figure in the dark coat. Its face was his. He woke up gasping, drenched in sweat. The coat was laid out neatly at the foot of his bed. He hadn't brought it down from the attic. Part 2, Stitch by Stitch. Raph stared at the coat. It lay across the blanket like a resting body, arms folded in, collar high, the hem just brushing his toes. He hadn't touched it. He was sure of that. He hadn't gone back to the attic. He hadn't even left his bedroom. He backed away slowly, heart pounding. It wasn't possible. Someone had to be messing with him. But who? He lived alone. His phone showed no calls, no messages. Just a blinking time stamp, 3:17 a.m. A low hum filled the room. Not a sound, exactly, but a vibration, like a taut wire straining to snap. It came from the coat. Then it stopped. And everything went still. In the morning, he brought the coat back up to the attic, dropping it into the trunk without looking at it. He slammed the lid shut again and pushed an old chest of drawers in front of it. Then he left, telling himself it had all been a dream. But the dreams returned every night. In them, the clothes from the trunk came alive, writhing, whispering, weaving around him like vines. Dresses danced on invisible limbs, gloves reached for his throat, buttons blinked like tiny, angry eyes. And always, always, the coat watched from a distance. On the fifth night, he woke up to the sound of fabric rustling. He sat up slowly. A scarf slithered across his floor like a snake. He froze. The scarf stopped mid-crawl, coiled on the hardwood. Then, slowly, it began dragging itself back toward the closet, into the shadows. He didn't sleep after that. Raph tried burning the clothes the next day. He hauled the entire trunk outside, ignoring the cold prickle at the back of his neck. As he doused the contents with lighter fluid, a gust of wind howled through the trees, almost knocking him over. Still, he lit the match. The fire flared up fast, then died just as suddenly. The clothes were untouched. Not even a scorch mark. His lighter stopped working right after. Panicked, Raph turned to research. He scoured old journals, books in the basement, even his aunt's handwritten notes tucked into a hollow panel in her nightstand. Over time, a picture formed, fragmented and ugly. Martha hadn't just collected clothes. She preserved them. Trapped them. Clothing, she had believed, held memory. Emotion. Echoes of the people who wore them. Some believed strong emotions could stain fabric like blood, rage, fear, grief. She'd written of rituals, preservation spells, and things best left buried. Her notes ended with a scrawl across one yellowed page: "Some garments are worn once, and never let go." The next evening, he heard footsteps above him. Deliberate. Pacing. In the attic. He grabbed a flashlight and a knife from the kitchen, then climbed the creaking stairs, each one groaning in protest. At the top, the air was thick with dust and a strange scent, sweet, rotting lavender. The chest of drawers had been moved. The trunk was open. Clothes were strewn across the floor in a circle, dresses and jackets and gloves, twisted and bent in unnatural shapes. In the center, the coat stood upright on its own, arms extended like it was waiting for an embrace. Then it took a step forward. Part 3, Unraveling. Raph froze. The coat, no, it moved. The arms hung limp, but the fabric twitched, like it was stretching to accommodate an unseen body inside. It dragged its hem across the floor, slow and deliberate, as if testing the weight of its own existence. Raph's heart hammered in his chest. His mouth went dry, his limbs heavy, but somehow, his body propelled him forward, his hands shaking violently as he reached for the coat. It wasn't supposed to be alive. He grabbed the collar, ready to rip it away, but as his fingers touched the fabric, an icy shudder shot up his spine. The sensation was wrong, too real, too alive, and for a split second, he thought he saw a face in the folds of the coat, a twisted mockery of his own. The room shifted. The air pressed against his lungs, thick and suffocating, and for a moment, Raph couldn't breathe. He stumbled back, dropping the coat to the floor. It collapsed like a pile of forgotten bones, but the nightmare was far from over. The clothes in the attic began to stir. A woman's dress, a garish yellow floral print, shifted toward him, its hem dragging in a looping spiral. Gloves curled up like fingers of an outstretched hand. A pair of boots, cracked with age, shuffled across the floor as if trying to walk. Raph gasped and turned to run, but his legs refused to move. The air seemed to freeze him in place. He blinked once, twice, but the room didn't look the same anymore. The walls had darkened. The attic's shadows felt deeper, thicker, pressing in like a weight on his chest. The footsteps above him stopped. A voice. It wasn't his aunt's. It wasn't human. It was a whisper, a low, rasping sound, as if the very fabric of the attic was speaking. It spoke in pieces, the words fragmenting, distorted. "You are, one of us, we're us, become us." Raph's mind reeled, his blood running cold. The voice was everywhere, filling the space with a maddening, suffocating presence. The air was no longer just cold, it was alive, creeping under his skin. The coat, now twisted and writhing, lifted from the floor once more. It rose higher and higher, not falling like fabric should, but standing upright, its arms outstretched like a hungry thing. Raph tried to move, tried to scream, but no sound came. His throat was tight, constricted. The coat's fabric was curling and undulating, as though the very fibers were breathing. He reached for the knife in his pocket, pulling it out with trembling fingers, but when he swung it at the coat, it shifted around the blade, as if the garment itself knew his intentions. The fabric stretched, wrapping around his wrist. Pain lanced through him, sharp and quick. His fingers burned where the coat touched, like the fabric was feeding off his skin. The whispering grew louder, clearer. You belong to us now, you wear us, you become us. Raph tried to pull away, but the coat tightened around him, its cold grip seeping into his skin. His breath hitched as his body began to burn, the heat coursing through him in a way that had nothing to do with fire. The attic seemed to fade away. The walls disappeared. He wasn't in the house anymore. Instead, he stood in a forest of blackened trees, their branches tangled in ropes of fabric, each leaf a swatch of cursed clothing, fluttering in a non-existent breeze. There were faces in the shadows. Faces without eyes, without features, just hollow outlines where once there had been something human. And then Raph realized something. The coat wasn't just moving, it was changing him. It was rewriting his form. In the reflection of the glassy surface beneath him, Raph saw his face warp, his features elongating, stretching into something wrong. His hands twisted, his fingers curling, his body bending, shrinking under the weight of the fabric that now seemed to flow through him like blood. The voice whispered again, louder now. You will never leave. You are us. And we are you. Part 4, Worn. Raph's body screamed in protest as the transformation continued, his skin rippling like fabric under pressure. His fingers twisted and reformed, sharp angles folding into shapes that didn't belong to a human. His heart beat erratically, fighting against the foreign sensation of thread, of cloth, pulling and tugging from the inside out. He tried to scream, but the sound that escaped was muffled, lost in the thick, suffocating air. His mouth no longer felt like his own, something was pushing at the inside of his skull, forcing the very shape of his face to warp. The voices were louder now, echoing in his head like a chorus of forgotten souls. Wear us. Become us. He fought against the sensation, but it was futile. The coat's fabric was no longer just touching his skin, it was merging with him. Every fiber of his being was being consumed by it, the threads of his own flesh twisting into new shapes, new forms, not of bone and blood, but of cotton, wool, and linen. His reflection in the glassy surface beneath him shifted again, but this time, he didn't recognize the face staring back. It was his face, yet it wasn't. His eyes were hollow, as if his soul had been scooped out and replaced by something far older, far darker. The coat tightened around him, hugging his new body, its arms extending like branches, long and thin, stretching and bending in ways that shouldn't be possible. He was inside it now, the fabric living in him, a part of him. He could feel it. He could feel everything, the memories of those who had worn it before him. The rage, the fear, the sorrow, the greed. All woven into the very fibers. He wanted to scream. To fight it. But it was too late. The transformation was complete. Raph's body, no, the coat's body, rose from the ground, standing taller than ever, towering like an old, twisted tree. It was no longer just a coat. It was a person. It was him. It was everything he had been, and everything he would be. And the worst part? He wanted it. The coat's arms reached out, and Raph, if he could still call himself that, embraced them. Years later, the house remained the same. People still whispered about it, the old mansion at the edge of town. Some said it was cursed, haunted by the restless spirits of forgotten souls. Others spoke of a figure seen through the dusty windows at night, tall, thin, and dressed in tattered black. A figure that didn't move like a person. A figure that moved like fabric, always bending, always shifting. Always waiting. And in the attic, the trunk sat quietly, untouched. Its contents still alive.